just leave it another minute or so, just so the people that were on time aren't sat around waiting too long. I understand also what it's like when you're trying to get from A to B, get online, join a podcast. I think 3 minutes was fine. We'll get started with introductions. I'm Graham Hampton, and welcome to today's podcast on MiCa. And thank you for joining again. So I'll be your presenter throughout the podcast. I'm an AML specialist in crypto compliance, and I'm certificated by ACAMS. Over 10 years experience in money service business, and probably over 4 years now in the crypto market. I've worked with several startups since about 2018, helping them to implement AML frameworks right from the beginning of when regulations started. In fact, I was working in finance houses before even regulations were around with the FCA back in the UK many, many years ago. I was in it when there wasn't a regulation, and then new regs started to come through. So I've worked in an unregulated market and a progressive regulated market for some time. I represent AML Bot. Many of you will know. They're an AML solution provider in know your customer, know your business, know your transaction, and consultancy. So I'd like to open with a statement, effectively. And the reason for the statement is that even though crypto regulations and laws create a safer, more robust environment, it can only reduce financial crime. You know, we always recommend that regulated and unregulated entities to adopt a compliance culture. There's a saying that I like, for a tone from the top, as they say, is really important. So it comes down to many things. It would always come down to checking your customers. It would come down to checking their address, verifying data, and taking full responsibility and ownership of your transactions. To understand the scale of MiCa, ESMA consulted with NCAs, ECOFIN, EBA, EIOPA, and the ECB. It was adopted from the European Commission after being approved by the European Parliament and European Council. So since the initiative of MiCa was introduced, there's been regular flow of information through the industry, maybe on LinkedIn, social media, meetings, expos. And I noticed that many posts and articles, they're full of acronyms, just like the ones that I've just used. So what I'd like to do is highlight the ones that are most commonly used. To give an overview on who's who, sometimes you can see a post and there's like 5 or 6 acronyms in there. And it's okay if you understand the industry terms. But what does it really mean? I'm sure there's some of you already know most of them. However, there could be some of you that don't. So hopefully that brings benefit to bring more clarity to the bigger picture of these 4 little words, MiCa. So we can run through the story of MiCa. I'll just stop my video. I'll make a start with ESMA. I think that's a good place to start, because MiCa is designed to reshape the crypto EU landscape in 2024. 12 months from now for crypto-related businesses, and only 6 months from now for token issuing businesses. So I'll start with ESMA because it's the European Securities and Markets Authority. It's the European financial market regulator and supervisor. It builds on the successful development since its establishment and reflects the evolving environment in which it operates. So ESMA implemented MiCa, markets in crypto assets. The Markets in Crypto Asset Regulation, MiCa, institutes uniform EU market rules for crypto assets. The regulation covers crypto assets that are not regulated by existing financial service regulation. Key provisions for those issuing and trading crypto assets, including asset reference tokens and e-money tokens, cover transparency, disclosure, authorization, and supervision of transactions. The new legal framework will support market integrity and financial stability by regulating public offers of crypto assets and by assuring consumers are better informed about their associated risks. So ESMA consultation involves the following: the NCA, as we see on the screen, are organizations that have legally delegated or have an invested authority or power to perform a designated function, normally monitoring compliance within the national statutes and regulations. ESMA is expected to publish a competent authorities list designated for member states, Article 31(1), Prospectus Regulation. Each member state shall designate a single competent administrative authority responsible for carrying out the duties resulting from this regulation and for ensuring the provisions of this regulation are applied. Member states shall inform the Commission, ESMA, and the competent authorities of member states, of other member states. I've included a link here in this slide, which you're welcome to have, and that gives you a link for each jurisdiction. The market that I've been involved with in Estonia, which were one of the early adopters of crypto, maybe back in 2018, say this: according to the Estonian Securities Market Act, the Finance Inspection is responsible for maintaining the official appointed mechanism, OAM, for storage and filing of regulation information. And the story is the system that plays an important part. So representatives of the issuers are able to file, disclose, and store regulated information so that it can be assessed by foreign user throughout the network of the OAMs. So far we've covered ESMA, MiCa, and NCA. Parties involved with MiCa. This is where the bigger picture sort of sits. How do they create MiCa? People have asked me before, is MiCa an agency? Who are they? So the parties involved in the creation of MiCa, like the European and Financial Affairs Council, ECOFIN, are responsible for the EU policy in three main areas: economic policy, taxation issues, and the regulation of financial services. EBA, a European Banking Authority, is an independent EU authority who play a key role in safeguarding the integrity and robustness of the EU banking sector to support financial stability in the EU. EIOPA, which is the European Insurance and Occupational Pensions Authority, whose mission is to protect the public's interest by contributing to the short, medium, and long-term stability and effectiveness of the financial system for the union's economy, its citizens, and businesses. Also, the ECB is the central bank of European Union countries who use the euro. The main task is to maintain price stability. They do this by making sure that inflation remains low, is their quote. Stable and predictable in this way, they seek to help you plan with your savings, your spending, and your finances. So MiCa was adopted by the European Commission, which is the EU's politically independent executive arm. Its alone responsibility is for drawing up proposals for new European legislation, and it implements the decisions of the European Parliament and the European Council of the EU, approved by the European Parliament. So together with the representatives of the EU governments in the Council, Parliament is responsible for adopting EU regulation. Under the originally legislative procedure, both institutions act as equal co-legislators. In some special cases, other procedures may apply. Approved by the European Council, the EU institution that defines the general political direction and the priorities of the European Union. So ESMA, who implemented MiCa, consulted in all of these other government agencies that were involved in making the decisions that sort of put us in the position of where we are now. So which crypto assets are to be regulated by the markets in the crypto asset regulation? I'll refer to MiCa rather because it's quite a long word to say, and that's why they're in these documents mainly to try and shorten the text. So MiCa regulates every digital representation of value or rights. It may be transferred and stored electronically using digital ledger technology, DLT, or similar. This definition has 3 key elements. I've not counted them, but maybe someone can count the amount of acronyms that are throughout even just this presentation. But each time I speak, I'm forced to sort of say one of them. A digital representation of value or rights means an electronic, non-tangible representation of a value or a right, meaning that crypto assets can serve various economic, legal, and social purposes, such as a medium of exchange, a store of value, a unit of account, a claim on an issuer, or a network, or a way of accessing a service or a platform. This includes external, non-intrinsic values attributed to a crypto asset by the parties concerned or by market participants, meaning the value is subjective and based only on the interest of the purchaser of the crypto asset, which are able to be transferred and stored electronically, which means crypto assets can be exchanged, held, or moved between parties across different platforms, networks, jurisdictions, with varying layers of liquidity, compatibility, and regulation. Using digital ledger technology, DLT, or similar technology, which means a technology that enables the operation and the use of the distributed ledger, such as DLT, being an information repository that keeps records of transactions, and that is shared across the synchronized between a set of DLT network nodes using a consensus mechanism. So we have 3 crypto asset types under MiCa. We have e-money tokens. E-money tokens, EMT, issuance to reserve to credit institutions and electronic money institutions only. EMT tokens is equivalent to e-money, crypto assets with a stable value based on only one fiat currency that aims to function similarly to electronic money. Replacing fiat currency in payments as defined in the e-money directive. E-money issuance involves creating a distributing electronic money token. These tokens are often treated as equivalents to traditional currency, allowing transactions within the digital framework. Credit institutions and electronic money institutions are typically involved in managing and facilitating the issuance of EMT tokens. It's essentially a digital representation of money for electronic transactions. Second one is asset reference tokens, ART. That aim to maintain a stable value by referencing several currencies that are legal tender, one or several commodities, one or several crypto assets, or a basket of such assets, and subsequently act as a means of payment to buy goods, services, and as it has a store value. The third one is crypto assets other than ARTs and EMTs cover a wide variety of crypto assets, including utility tokens, for which there are some specific rules. MiCa will replace existing national frameworks for crypto assets that are not covered by the existing EU financial service legislation, and will serve as an EU passport for authorization across the EU as a single market. MiCa does not apply to crypto assets that qualify as financial instruments, such as the second Markets in Financial Instrument Directive, MiFID II, deposits including structured deposits, funding including e-money, unless they qualify as EMTs, securitization of transactions, and various insurance and pension products regulated under existing EU financial service legislation. MiCa aims to regulate crypto assets not covered as financial instruments by the MiFID. Whether or not it's applicable depends on the content of the instrument and not on the technology that is used to issue it. The common term is substance over form. Substance over form is the context of focusing on the actual economy reality of a transaction, rather than just its legal or accounting treatment. It's about understanding its true nature. Utility tokens are crypto assets which are intended to produce digital access to goods and services. Available on DLT and accepted only by the issuer of that token. It is a type of token asset that does not fall under the category of EMT and ART, but rather serves as a means of accessing specific goods or services offered by the issuer. For instance, a utility token can be used to buy tickets or vouchers, or even join a membership. So what's out of the scope for MiCa? There's other assets around in the market, and which ones are not covered by MiCa? So I'll just briefly run over which ones are not covered and basically what they are, without just saying what the acronyms are. Most of you would have heard of these, so excuse me if you know exactly what they are, but this gives some definition. So out of scope assets, non-tangible digital assets that cannot be transferred to other holders, do not qualify as crypto assets under MiCa. Therefore, digital assets that are accepted only by the issuer or the offerer, and that are technically impossible to transfer directly to other holders, are excluded. An example of such digital assets, like loyalty schemes, where the loyalty points can be exchanged for benefits, only with the issuer or offerer of those points. Free crypto assets and crypto assets other than ARTs and EMTs that are automatically generated as a reward for contributing to a distributed ledger or validating transactions in a concessions-based system. This includes crypto assets generated as staking rewards for verifying and securing transactions on a proof of stake blockchain. The granting of loans in crypto assets is also not included in MiCa. However, in practice, these custody or payment services in connection with the granting of such loans will be subject to regulation. Free crypto assets, like airdrops, you see them on different exchanges. There's giveaways or faucets. Sometimes for completing a task, you know, the only, again, this isn't to try and teach you how to suck eggs, but the legitimacy of some of these airdrops and things, caution is certainly required. So ART commonly refers to Arbitrum. Arbitrum is a layer 2 scaling solution for Ethereum, designed to improve scalability and reduce transaction fees on the Ethereum network. It's a technology aimed to enhance the overall efficiency of Ethereum-based transactions. We often hear the word gas rates or gas fees, which is really the work that's put into the technology. And these are where the competition sits. You know, this is everyone's trying to reduce their gas fees. Non-fungible tokens, NFTs. MiCa are largely excluding NFTs, which are unique and non-fungible crypto assets. The mere attribution of a unique identifier to a crypto asset is not, in and of itself, sufficient to classify it as unique and non-fungible. A non-fungible token is a unique digital asset that represents ownership of proof of authenticity of a specific item or a piece of content using blockchain technology. Unlike cryptocurrencies such as Bitcoin or Ethereum, NFTs are not interchangeable on a one-to-one basis. Each NFT has distinctive information, making it one of a kind. They are commonly used to tokenize digital art, collectibles, music, and other digital assets. Crypto asset services are provided in a fully decentralized manner without any intermediary, i.e. DeFi, are not within the scope of MiCa. DeFi stands for decentralized finance. It's a movement in the financial industry that aims to recreate traditional financial systems like banking and trading. Using decentralized and blockchain-based technologies, I've listed that I can share with you some key aspects of what DeFi include. So decentralization, DeFi, operates on decentralized networks, often using blockchain platforms like Ethereum. This eliminates the need for traditional intermediary like banks. Smart contracts are self-executing contracts with the term of the agreement directly written into the code. In DeFi, smart contracts automate various financial processes, enabling trustless and transparent transactions. Lending and borrowing. DeFi platforms allow users to lend their cryptocurrency and earn interest or borrow assets by using their crypto as collateral. This is done without the need of a traditional bank. DEX, decentralized exchanges. DeFi excludes decentralized exchanges where users can trade cryptocurrencies directly with one another without relying on a centralized exchange. Yield farming. Users can earn additional tokens by providing liquidity to DeFi protocols. This process, known as yield farming, involves staking or lending assets to receive rewards. Governance tokens. Some DeFi projects issue governance tokens and allow the users to participate in decision-making process of the platform. Holders of these tokens can vote on proposals or changes to the protocol. So DeFi has gained significant attention for its potential to increase financial inclusion, reduce reliance on traditional banks, and create more open and accessible financial services. So I move on to the scope of services that can be provided by crypto asset service providers and financial institutions, which may be authorized to provide one or more of the following crypto asset services. Custody and administration of crypto asset services on behalf of the client. Operational of a trading platform for crypto assets. It can produce that operation. Exchange of crypto assets for funds. Exchange of crypto assets for other crypto assets. Execution of orders for crypto assets on behalf of customers. Placing of crypto assets. Reception and transmission of orders for crypto assets on behalf of customers. Advice on crypto assets. Portfolio management on crypto assets. Transfer services for crypto assets on behalf of customers. So there's a list of 10 services there that can be provided. What does that mean? As in, okay, so what are the financials? How does that look when starting up a VASP or changing to the new regulation? Capital investment is a crucial part of any business. So minimum initial capital and other requirements depend on the scope of crypto asset services to be provided. So they've put them into classifications, which is a new thing. I'll start with class 1. Class 1 CASP. They've used CASP now. I've seen it worded so many ways: VASP, CASP, digital currency. So they're going to unify with this crypto asset service provider, CASP. May be authorized for any crypto asset services of the following, and it's 50,000 for the capital, initial capital investment, which would be the execution of crypto asset orders. Service providers are obliged to use policies and procedures that will ensure the best possible outcome for the executed customer orders. Placement of crypto assets. CASP must clearly explain the transaction cost and fees and inform the offerer on the proposed timing, procedure and price of the crypto asset placement. Transfer of crypto assets on behalf of clients, customers. There's always this, I see it a lot, to define the difference between a client and a customer is someone who uses your service and a product. A client is someone who just uses your services, professional services. So it can be either or, depending on what you're offering. Know your customer is an industry term, so we generally call them sort of customers. That discussion's held quite a lot. Service providers are obliged to conclude an agreement with their clients, specifying their duties, responsibilities, of their fees, effectively, and the transfer services that they provide. Receiving and transmitting crypto asset orders. When transmitting customer orders, CASP are not allowed to accept any type of payment or benefits for routing clients' orders to a particular crypto asset trading platform. It's the customer's choice. If I want to send from Binance to Coinbase, Binance don't get some sort of affiliation for this. They don't get paid for this. There's no, so they're putting in a regulation for that. Advice on crypto assets. Crypto investments advisors must gather relevant information from customers and assess their crypto asset investment knowledge and experience. Advice given must be weighted against the suitability assessment and include a clear explanation and warnings signs of the risks. So now when you see a packet of cigarettes, it's got in massive words right across the front of it that smoking kills. I still see people order them, but you know, it's very clear. So we now move on to class 2. Crypto asset service providers authorized for any crypto asset services under class 1 that I've just mentioned. And then there's some additions. It now steps up to 125,000 capital investment. Custody and administration of crypto assets. The crypto asset custodial must keep its customers' crypto assets on DLT addresses that are separate from its database, from its address. Custodial must file quarterly reports on the crypto asset positions they hold for each client. Customers may hold their crypto asset custodial liability for losses that result from hacks or from malfunction. Exchange against fiat currency or other crypto assets, dealing on own account. Exchange operators must publish a non-discriminatory commercial policy that indicates the type of clients they agree to transact with, firm prices offered or pricing mechanisms, disclose data, price and volumes on transactions executed on their exchange platform. And then, as you can imagine, class 3 is everything in class 1 and 2, plus some additions. Again, we step up to 150,000. So this is an operational of trading platforms for crypto assets. They must set rules on admitting and suspending crypto assets sent or received by the platform. The MFT, the mainframe trading, can be assessed by retail clients. Privacy tokens that deter user identification and transactional history are prohibited. Operators may not trade on their platform with their accounts. The platform must continuously publish bids and ask prices as well as transaction volumes. Transactions must be settled with no DLT on the day they happen. We move on to the authorization package. So financials need to be reported so that the financial of their own projections, program of operations, description of structural organization, description of governance arrangements and internal control, policies, procedures are necessary for the firm's activities, operational risk, AML, and counter terrorist financing, and security risk management policies and procedures, shareholders and managers documents, incorporation documents, and payment of the initial capital. So that gives us some structure of the management of the VASP when registering for MiCa. There's a few changes there. I can show later through how these affect what's going on today and what's going to happen come the end of the year. Management structure and other mandatory positions. So a CEO is a mandatory body. At the same time, he may be a board member if a board member is appointed as CEO. CEO should be employed by the entity since its incorporation. So as soon as the business starts, as soon as it's registered with the document is processed, the documents are processed, then the CEO needs to be appointed from that point. The CEO may be a foreign or local person. The AML officer, it's a mandatory employee. AML related experience is required. Should be fluent in the local language. Many of them you'll see local language and in Europe, English as a secondary language. Should be employed by the commencement of crypto service activities. So all these people need to be in place before the business goes live. Supervisory council and management board. Management board and supervisory council are option bodies. Both shall consist of 3 members. A member that supervisory council may not at the same time or may not at the same time serve as CEO or management board. The management board is an optional body with a minimum of 3 members. Other mandatory positions will be crypto asset service specialists. CASP should employ personnel with the knowledge, skills, expertise necessarily for the discharge of the responsibilities that are allocated to them, taking into account the scale, nature, and range of the crypto asset services provided. A few other mandatory elements I'll include here, which is crypto asset service specialists. Crypto asset services should employ personnel with the knowledge skills that are necessary. I think that's the key sort of marker that sort of echoes through. Incorporated for private limited companies. These areas here are what's required for the entity that should be incorporated before applying for a competent authority. And this step would not be relevant in case of existing entity is to be used. So incorporation of a private limited company may be performed without the physical director being present. They don't have to be in the country. It's common that notaries and apostolized documents are used to identify. So incorporation of private limited company may be performed without the presence of the incorporator. Incorporation of a legal entity requires the following: power of attorney to be used by the incorporator, incorporation documents, articles of association, as I just mentioned, and agreement of incorporation for the legal entity to be incorporated. An accumulative account needs to be opened with a local bank to pay funds in for the share capital. The 50, 125, 150, once the business has been understood, then the relevant share capital has to be placed into the bank account. Candidates for the management need to be selected. Documents about the incorporation need to be collected. Payment of the equity capital shall be made by the incorporator. Irrespectively, when the legal entity is incorporated, share capital will be expected to be paid in before the authorization is granted. Incorporation requires the involvement of a notary public and minor notary and registration fees. Once the incorporation documents are signed and the share capital is paid, the limited liability company may be registered with the Register of Legal Entities. Information and documents of the shareholders must contain full disclosure up to natural persons directly or indirectly qualifying in the CASP. So each shareholder, subject to the regulatory assessment, will have to provide a CV, which will have an impeccable reputation for each shareholder. It will be assessed by the competent authority. A copy of ID documents for the natural persons, a copy of the incorporation documents for the legal entity, no criminal record, and the number of shareholders, direct and indirect, and it's not limited. Information provided shall include a detailed diagram of the holding structure of the applicant, including the breakdown of its capital and voting rights and the names of the shareholders with qualifying holdings. Here we can look at post-authorization obligation. So here's some EU regulations and requirements of these that have changed throughout this legislative sort of process. That they've made a few changes. So the below that I'm going to mention is notifying the competent authority of any changes to the authorization application, any changes relating to the managers or the shareholders, pre-clearing shareholders and managers in case of changes in shareholders and management structures. So post-authorization, preparation of other regulatory reports by the competent authority, reporting of AML and CTF to the competent authority, Submitting passporting notifications is relevant. Pre-clearing and signing outsourcing agreements, if any. Technical internal procedures relevant to the activity. AML rules, risk management rules, internal control rules, job descriptions, employment of additional and supporting staff, renting the office space, etc., etc. So here we can see some regulatory reporting requirements. The new regulatory regulations on the market of crypto assets, MiCa, provide new possibilities for financial institutions. As of the end of 2024, financial institutions such as electronic money institutions or financial brokerage companies, which were restricted from involvement in crypto assets, are allowed by MiCa to provide crypto asset services. Financial institutions seeking to add crypto asset services to their existing authority would be subject to a notification updating their existing authorization with the regulator. Scope of crypto asset services for financial institutions. Crypto asset service providers may provide within the EU only by authorized crypto asset service providers, CASPs, or certain financial institutions subject to notification requirements. CASP may be authorized to provide one or more of the following crypto asset services. However, the financial institution that have already regulated should be allowed to provide all or some of the crypto asset services without having to obtain authorization as a CASP under MiCa, subject to certain notification requirements. For example, a bank are allowed to provide any of the crypto asset services, but a financial brokerage company may only provide crypto asset services considered equivalent to the investment services and activities for which they already are authorized under laws in the markets of financial instruments. Custody and administration of crypto assets on behalf of clients. Operation of a trading platform for crypto assets. Exchange of crypto assets for funds. Exchange of crypto assets for other crypto assets. Execution of orders for crypto assets on behalf of customers. Placing of crypto assets. Reception and transmission of orders for crypto assets on behalf of their customers. Advice on crypto assets, portfolio management on crypto assets, and transfer services for crypto assets on behalf of their customers. So slight differences there between the CASP and the financial institution. More acronyms, but in a nutshell, these services provided are already regulated and are regulated a lot more than an AML sort of act. That's why they have a registration, not a full process of application. To pick out the largest one, I would say like MiFID 2 on the Markets in Financial Instrument Directive is a European regulatory framework that aims to enhance investor protection and improve the function of financial markets. It imposes requirements on financial institutions such as increased transparency, reporting, record-keeping standards to ensure fair and efficient markets. MiFID also sets the rules on trading of financial instruments, including stricter regulations on high-frequency trading and the unbundling of research and execution fees. There's a table here, you may not be able to see it, but the purpose of it is to describe here what the authorized financial institutions are, the services they provide, and the authorization that they fall under. So these are the organizations that will require a notification. I think the investment firm is the easiest one to pick out because they have the largest amount of services that they'll be providing. But it certainly brings a new opportunity to investment firms. They'll be able to go from currencies to trades to stocks to cryptos and manage a large portfolio. Equivalent crypto asset services to the investment services, providing custody and administration of crypto assets on behalf of clients is deemed equivalent to ancillary service. So I won't read out this whole document, but here we can see the credit institution. They can provide crypto asset services. The Central Securities Depository, CSD, investment firms, electronic money institutions, custody, administration, and transfer services. So fintechs, you see a lot of fintech banking these days on cross-border transactions and currency wallets. They're regulated by the Electronic Money Derivative Directive and called the EMD. And we're starting to see some of them have a big appetite for this. So they're looking to provide and set their business up as a EMEI provider and a crypto wallet provider. So it's given this new opportunity to have more products and services available to the customers in the EU. However, if they've not been registered before, they will need to register first. Many of them are probably doing that now. They're getting in there before the MiCa sort of starts. And then there'll be a notification. So timing is in the essence. The scope of crypto asset services for financial institutions. Financial institutions may provide crypto asset services without authorization only if crypto asset services correspond to the list of permitted services. So here's a recognizable list. Financial institutions is in the left-hand side in the darker text. Crypto asset service providers allowed to provide after notification procedure. So that gives a breakdown there. I won't read every one of them out, but I think the finance brokerages, the electronic money institutions, they're going to be authorized under the law of e-money, and e-money institutions shall only provide custody and administration of crypto assets on behalf of the customer, and transfer services for crypto assets on behalf of customers with regards to the e-money token issues. Payment institutions is not applicable, that they must be authorized as a CASP. The notification package, description of the procedure of the segregation of customers, their crypto assets and the funds. A program of operations, a description of the structure of the organization, a description of the governance arrangements and internal controls, policy procedures necessary for firms' activities, operational risk, AML, counter-terrorist financing and security risk management policies and procedures, non-discriminatory commercial policy governing the relationship with the client or with the customer. So these policies need to be available for them. And the business continuity plan, how does the business make its money, and who are the investors, etc. This is a new initiative with MiCa, is the EU passport. Financial institutions are allowed to provide crypto asset services throughout the European Union, either through the right of establishment, including through a branch or through the service to provide services. Financial institutions that provide crypto asset services on a cross-border basis shall not be required to have a physical presence in the territory of the host member state. So if you are doing business in a different country within the EU, you don't need to have an office there. You don't need to have staff there, but you can carry out your business there. You can report, etc. The extension of authorization. Financial institutions seeking to add crypto asset services to their existing authorization shall request the competent authorities to grant their initial authorization for an extension of their authorization by completing and complementing and updating the information provided for authorization. The request for the extension shall be processed under the rules on the assessment of the application for authorization. That's a bit of a mouthful there, but there's some things I need to repeat as they are, because this is what's the information has been given by MiCa, and it's not to be changed or to have an opinion on. So I don't mean it to sound too much like a lecture and a PowerPoint presentation and it's word for word. But there's some things that I feel that are worth explaining with as much clarity as possible on what the case actually is. So this is the mandatory position in case of advice or portfolio management services. Financial institutions should ensure competent staff. I think they probably do anyway. In my experience, that's generally the case, but they seem to want to highlight it. So I won't spend too much time on here. It's like know your job, basically. So financial institutions should employ personnel with this right knowledge and skills and expertise necessary for the discharge of the responsibilities allocated to them, considering the scale, nature, and range of the crypto asset services provider. So authorization timelines. This gives us some a roadmap from the day you submit, and then to how and when you can expect to see your company on the register. So here we run through financial institutions should not begin providing crypto asset notifications services if their notification is incomplete. A financial institution is not required to submit any more information that was previously submitted to them to the competent authority, which the information would be identical, so they can cross-match and transfer all the data. It's the additional information that they'll want to understand about providing crypto services. When submitting the information, it should express and state that any information that was submitted previously is still up to date. So it's to check through anything, email addresses, office address, anything that's part of the structure of the company that's changed in that process, that also needs to be updated, which I'm sure it gets updated anyway, but they've highlighted it. So there is a situation on this called grandfather rights. And the EU have made a point on this, and they're trying to reduce it as much as they possibly can. And some member states are responding to that. So on, I think it was October the 17th, ESMA suggested the member states are to consider reducing the duration of the grandfathering clause from 18 months to 12 months. It's due to the high risk clients could face applying theoretically. According to ESMA, there's more than 2,000 entities are currently registered under national regimes. According to the member states, they're invited to notify their approach of this grandfathering clause to the European Commission and ESMA long before the 30th of June 2024. Application, submission, and authorization process. Understanding the timeline, the requirements, and their interpretation when submitting your MiCa authorization application on the official submission date is crucial to ensure that there are necessary information and operational requirements that they're correctly addressed and fully integrated. Preparation is key to avoiding the deficiencies and misinterpretations that could potentially delay the entire application process. Lithuania has already removed grandfathering time thresholds, meaning that applications need to start on December the 24th, which is when the MiCa date is active. This shows their intention to put their resources into the more serious applicants. This is causing a shall we stay or shall we go response. All states have been invited to notify on their approach to grandfather rights. Authorization decision notification. The competent authority will decide to refuse or grant authorization based on the nature, size, and complexity of the proposed crypto asset service. You will be notified with this decision within 5 working days. Notification to ESMA. The competent authority must inform the European Securities and Markets Authority, ESMA, of their decision within 2 working days. After refusing or granting your authorization, ESMA register updates. ESMA will update its register with your authorization status. Regarding of any previously submitted information, the competent authority will not require you to resubmit any information already in the past under the EMD, the MiFID, PSD2, or national laws related to crypto services before June. So, provided that the information remains current and valid. So this comes into, your jurisdiction, jurisdiction positioning, which member country is the right place. There's many things to take into consideration when you're opening a business in a country. So selecting the jurisdiction for your CASP operation is a strategic decision which will influence your operation. So national CASP and MiCa integration, currently active VASP could consider securing a national Visa asset service provider license. We still have that available now during 2024, and then adopt the MiCa rules as of December 2024 when it becomes available. So there could be some companies that start pre-MiCa. I know Estonia for sure, their current legislation has been lined up for MiCa, including travel rule. I won't go into travel rule, but they've already made some updates and amendments to their current rules. So you're quite close already. I think somewhere like Lithuania is very different. It's a registration with the FIU under the AML Act. There will be quite a shift between MiCa and that. So there's plenty to sort of take into consideration, especially with the skills of staff, who's available in the market, the cost of even renting offices, all of the facts that need to come in to deciding in which territory to start your business is fundamental. So a few pros and cons of MiCa. Pros is the clarity on the regulatory framework across the EU, data sharing and transparency with the same all for one for all sort of rule book. At the moment, we've got different rules in different countries, and companies may move around to whatever's more suitable to them. So there'll be less shifting around once this open boundary of same for all takes place. Customer protection, white paper information for more informed decisions. Most tokens will have this available, and they need to register this if it's going to be within a EU exchange. Increase investor confidence, I think, is what's being said at the moment, especially when we've got electronic money institutions will be providing these services. This could be a good thing. It means that the industry moves forward with large investors taking interest. You see overseas, there's interest from companies like BlackRock, etc., and they've even been talking to Wall Street, etc. So crypto is definitely coming through in different ways, in different forms, in different jurisdictions. But the most important thing, I think, over everything that I look at is probably the safety for the environment. And these are good measures to step forward to create a safer environment for all. The cons for startups, this is a different. I remember being involved with startups going back 4 years ago. This is a different business in some respects, where the liabilities for fines, they've really increased the amount up to 5 million. And also the thresholds of USD stable coins have been put in place. So there are some they call it a crypto winter at the moment, and some business may not actually have the funding and the resources and the technical position systems all ready and in place for MiCa. So it'd be interesting to see what their decision is. I'll share something with you. I'd rather have just an open book. The different compliance officers I've spoken to of late, they've sort of highlighted to say that they're looking into the market to move to different companies based on the fact that the company that they're currently representing have made clear of their obligations and what they'll be looking to sort of do in the future. So there was one statistic was put out there, I'm not a fan of statistics always, but it sort of said that they're expecting only 20% of some companies to stay in some jurisdictions. So that means there's a lot of movement going to happen throughout this year. Not coming out of the crypto industry, just movement. Where will they go? Which jurisdictions? If that's the case, which ones look more attractive? So there's going to be there's new opportunities in many different ways because it's such a big shift. I think it's the biggest shift in this crypto market from a regulatory perspective only. So if you were looking today, if you were looking to register an exchange, you were looking to apply for approval and licensing. If we applied this to the Estonian market, on the left-hand side, I've maybe listed what's required, and the authority is the FIU currently. That's going to shift in 2024 with MiCa, and that's going to be authorized by the FSA. That's quite a big shift. Definition of virtual currency. It has increased compared to what it was, but there's a one-figure minimum capital. Fit and proper for management. I think that's pretty much what I mentioned earlier. That sort of stays the same, really. You need to have the right people in the right position, and internal audit control and AML rules. So at the moment, there's the possibilities for startups to easily be involved. When it moves over in 2024 into MiCa, you can see, I won't read out every bullet point, however, the red for sure: rules for trading platforms, publication of white papers, market rules and right of withdrawal, asset segregation rules, market abuse rules, and special rules for stable coins, compliance and cybersecurity rules. So the compliance and cybersecurity rules, data protection officers, security experts, are now involved with this picture. They are involved with the current picture, of course, but not in the same scale. So if we run through a timeline there, if you were to of how this MiCa is moving forward and the roadmap ahead of us. This is the implementation of MiCa in Estonia. So I just picked out one particular country because they've all got slightly different forecasts. But if we look at number one, this is the first and second consultation round of the national draft of the national law. So that was back in Q3 of 2023. And as we step through, the first real is June 2024. This is the issuance. This is the issuers of tokens. They'll need to be ready within 6 months. So that doesn't give them too much time. I'm sure they've got the resources and they'll be lined up ready to be on target. And then when we get to the license issued by FIU will be repealed back, when we get to the end of sort of December. So this is when the CASP was submitted under MiCa, the application of the new competent authorities, the FSA, and then FIU will hand over and will no longer be the incumbent. So that concludes an understanding and a starting point for your MiCa compliance journey. I did include quite a few different perimeters, different agencies, different perspectives. Simply from my own experience of looking through information when it goes out there, we have to do a lot of delving and digging to find out a lot more information. So to put the big picture together and a summary and an overall discussion is huge amounts of information to try and narrow down into I call it a conversation, but it's one way, but to get this information. So my intention really is to try and share with you the bigger picture. And I hope that that's sort of enabled you to process that and take you down the road of everything that's involved from the regulatory perspective, from an entity perspective, from an investment perspective. And really, it's where our position sits as a service provider, as a solution provider. So we'll be providing assistance with drafting relevant policies, because this is going to be a legal requirement. Opening bank accounts for accumulative accounts, as I mentioned, the 50, the 25, 125, 150 investments are required. So we can assist there. Advice on the business plan and the scope of the activities, where they need to be broken down, and a clear scope. We can assist with that. And drafting or reviewing internal rules and procedures necessary for the authorization of CASP, following the pre-agreed distribution of tasks. I'd like to bring it to a close, and thank you very much for listening. I'm not sure how long we've taken, but it's been over an hour. Here's some contact points if you would like to get in touch. Look at our website, amlbot.com, and I'm sure we'll engage in the future and work together as we walk through this regulatory framework. Thank you.